Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. The World Health Organization, WHO, says wealthier nations should postpone plans to give children and teenagers COVID-19 vaccines and instead donate supplies to low-income countries. The head of the WHO on Friday urged countries to supply more vaccines to the Global Fair Access Scheme, COVAX. So far, COVAX is able to supply Eastern Caribbean countries like St. Lucia with vaccines for only 20% of the population. To achieve herd immunity to COVID-19, countries need to vaccinate at least 70% of their populations. The international distribution of COVID vaccines remains vastly uneven. Since the first vaccines were approved in December, wealthier countries have bought up most of the supply. Many are racing to vaccinate as much of their population as possible. Speaking at a virtual conference in Geneva on Friday, the WHO's Dr. Tedros said he understood why some countries wanted to vaccinate children and adolescents, but he urged them to reconsider. As the second anniversary of Arnold Joseph's killing approaches, the mother of the teen who died at the hands of police is demanding that the relevant authorities get their ducks in a row and provide the information that the family desperately seeks.
On May 22, 2019, 17-year-old Arnold Joseph was shot dead by police at the intersection of La Panse and Chaussee Road. It is alleged that the officers were in a high-speed chase with a vehicle in which Joseph was a passenger. According to the police, the entry post-secondary school student and two other males were traveling in a suspicious vehicle in Castries, which failed to stop when ordered to do so. The law enforcement officers said during an attempt to apprehend the individuals, one person was fatally shot, a second was injured, and a third uninjured male was arrested. Since his death, Joseph's family has been very vocal in the press, demanding that justice be served in the matter. Almost 2 years since the fatal shooting, Arnold Joseph's mother, Joanna Joseph, says while the family is not giving up, they seem to be at a stalemate with the Royal St. Lucia Police Force when it comes to receiving updates on the investigation.
Nothing really going on. They're not really saying anything. I tried to call the investigation officer yesterday and still the same thing. So they're not giving any closure. They're not saying anything. We haven't have any story, any statement from the police stating of what happened on that night. So far we had the same pace we were last year and the time it happened. It's the same thing.
Minister for National Security Hermangild Francis is on record saying that families who are victims of such violent crimes should be in constant contact with at least one senior official of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force through what he calls victim-inspired policing. Joseph, however, says almost 2 years after losing her son, the communication between the police and her family is not any better than when the incident transpired.
I say it to them, I say it to the media all the time. Communication is terrible. If you don't call them, they don't call you. If you don't keep in touch with them, they don't keep in touch with you. And that's the worst. It's the worst. I mean, if you're doing an investigation and you tell somebody you're going to call them on Friday, call them. If you don't call them on Friday, they don't call. So after a month, if you call them, they will just say, I apologize and whatever. There's so much going on. Come on. I mean, you're investigating somebody that is dead where we have no answer up to a day like today. So I think you have to communicate with that person at some point. But nothing. Okay. The same thing all the time.
She says to this day, the family has a myriad of questions that are yet to be answered.
Up to now, they cannot come out in the news and say, we was following that car because the fellas went and robbed somebody or because somebody said that. Or if it was suspicious, say it was. But we need to know the why it happened. And then still, after all of that, but why did you all leave him there to die and he did not get no medical attention? Why didn't the first responder pay attention to him when he was the one that was injured the worst? You know, there's all the whys. And why are we so cold and why are they so silent and why they make it look like he was just a nobody? These are the whys. And I think after 2 years, you cannot tell me that Still, we have investigation going on where after 2 years, y'all don't have nothing.
In his last interview with the media on the Arnold Joseph matter, the then Deputy Commissioner of Police, Milton Daisy, informed the media that the gun used was due to be shipped overseas for testing. However, that was delayed due to COVID-19. On Saturday, May 22nd, it will be 2 years since the killing of Arnold Joseph. His mother says the family will be awaiting word from the Royal St. Lucia Police Force on the investigation into her son's killing. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
St. Lucia has recorded 20 homicides so far for the year 2021. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force says it is on the ball to ensure that it tackles this issue at the community level.
Dennery and Viewport have been two communities that have become hotspots when it comes to homicides and other violent crimes for 2021. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force says they are doing all in their power to ensure that officers are on the ground in the various areas to clamp down on crime and to engage youth in positive activities. Superintendent of Police and Officer in charge of the Northern Division, Elvis Thomas, explained that the Policing My Community initiative has made many strides in the south of the island, and soon a similar initiative will be undertaken in Dennery.
For the south, we have a very active community policing office down there, and we have officers who are very active down there, and I know that they are doing their best to go into those communities. They have actually formed the Rising Stars Youth group, and they have done really well. So I know that they will do some more to reach out to these communities. That particular youth group, we are looking to bring it to Dennery. The discussion has already started. As indicated earlier, as the officer in charge of the Northern Division, we are in the process of working on a community policing plan for the division.
Recently, a school student was robbed and physically assaulted while attempting to get a bus to school. Thomas indicated that since the reopening of schools, officers have increased their patrols in the city. However, he says the responsibility does not fall squarely on the shoulders of the police.
Well, this is not just for community policing, but for our stations in the various communities. For example, Central Police Station, we have the community police officers, the CRB officers who go into the schools on a regular basis. They have discussions, they have sessions with students and staff, but we also have our officers who would on a daily basis conduct patrols in these areas to ensure that various offenses are not committed. And just as school has reopened, we have tried our best to intensify these patrols to ensure that incidents such as robberies and all the other things are not happening. So it's a joint effort, and we are continuing to conduct the patrols.
Superintendent Thomas says one of the objectives of the Policing My Community initiative is to improve the relationship of the public and the Royal St. Lucia Police Force.
We want to see a major boost as it relates to community policing. I will ensure that we have those projects going and we have a better relationship with the public. The public comes on board with us because, as Sir Robert Peel said, the police are the public and the public are the police, and so we want to continue that as much as possible.
He says during the coming months, there will be a noticeable difference in how community policing is undertaken. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Is the route of a university college the right one for St. Lucia? Educator Roanne Sion says that the country has to be extremely careful that in its quest to have university status, it does not compromise the quality of instruction given to students.
Discussions surrounding the possible transition of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College into a university college has been ongoing for many years, as tertiary education remains a determining factor for small island states like St. Lucia, looking to position themselves in the competitive global environment. Back in 2019, Education Minister Dr. Gail Rigobert stated that before the college can transition, it would need to first be a very good college, and that any transition would only benefit from that strong foundation. In April, the college introduced 4 new bachelor programs in its quest to obtain university status. But is that move the right one for the institution? Educator Roanne Sion was in the hot seat this week and shared his thoughts on if St. Lucia should make the transition.
One has to be wise enough to realize if you have the financial wherewithal, the economic wherewithal to maintain the quality staff that you want to be a proper university, you go ahead and do it. But if you're looking at the dollars and cents issues and realizing that even if you can keep your professorship, your level of teachers for the first year or 2 years or 3 years, down the road it becomes very expensive to maintain. And, you know, with the University of the West Indies already here in the Caribbean area and already having its own challenges, one has to seriously question the wisdom of going into a full-scale university.
Sion says with all things considered, he isn't convinced that the current state of affairs locally would allow St. Lucia to flourish if it took the university route.
I'm not sure the benefits, the cost-benefit analysis would let us go for the full-fledged university, considering the cost of maintaining it, considering our current economic state in St. Lucia, where we're struggling anyway. And where the most you can probably do is to have a mediocre institution. And a mediocre institution that will be competing with the University of the West Indies and other established schools. Or whether you're going to go for a virtual type school, which may be a little cheaper to maintain, but you're still going to have to get quality tutors because they're going to have to pay them anyway. And where the other institutions also have virtual components to their operations. So we have to understand, do you want to have a university just to say you have a university? Or you want to have one that's going to be giving the students an opportunity to get a high-level education, to develop the country properly?
The Sir Arthur Lewis Community College now offers bachelor's degrees in environmental studies and sustainability, tourism and hospitality, business administration and public health. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
The Ezra Long Lab continues enhancing COVID-19 testing on island following the donation of testing equipment. More in this report from Fernell Neptune.
As part of efforts to aid in St. Lucia's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Lucelec recently officially handed over testing equipment to the Ezra Long Lab of the Owen King EO Hospital. The equipment is expected to further strengthen the testing capacity of the Ezra Long Lab. Director of the Ezra Long Lab, Dr. Wayne Felicia, says the equipment is needed and will play a significant part in addressing testing challenges for COVID-19 in St. Lucia.
Persons would remember when we went for our situation during the months of January and February, where results delayed up until 7 days, so even more. With the assistance of the extraction device that Lucelec has provided, we've been able to keep to our turnaround time of 24 to 48 hours, which we have been able to maintain through large parts of the month of March, April, and into May.
Managing Director of Lucelec, Trevor Luisi, says his organization remains committed to contribute to the national COVID-19 response effort and believes the donation of testing equipment will assist tremendously.
In the last quarter of 2020, we were beginning to see an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases, and we wanted to do all we could to get the equipment here quickly. That is the equipment for which we're doing a symbolic presentation today. Symbolic because the equipment has been in use. Sadly though, not as quickly as we had hoped due to some setup challenges. Nonetheless, we are pleased to have been able to make a contribution to improving the efficiency with which the lab can process PCR samples.
Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belma George expressed gratitude to Lucelec for the donation and says this will contribute towards expanding the nation's testing and curbing the COVID-19 virus.
This capacity that we now have, and a lot of the people of St. Lucia who waited long periods for results are now seeing those benefits when within 24 hours you are able to tell if you're positive or negative, to know how to proceed And it has also supported our contact tracing efforts in making it a lot more efficient and reducing spread. So this really is an invaluable tool in supporting and managing COVID-19.
The donation of the testing equipment from Lucelec to the Ezra Long Lab is valued at $114,000 EC. Reporting from the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I am Fennel Neptune.
Stay with us, there's more news coming up after the break.